So before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I did want to give you guys a little brief update on my Switch 2 pre-order quest. Check out the video that I made at like 1:30 in the morning last night if you happen to miss out on that. I ended up staying up till about 2:30 a.m. trying to secure one to absolutely no avail. I woke up and tried to get one off of GameStop's website, which ended up crashing at 10:58 in the morning, and they were going live at 11 a.m. Eastern time. I wasn't able to get one on the website, hopped in the car, went to a GameStop near me. The line of people did not meet the quantity that they were going to have. So as it stands now, I still don't have my pre-order in, but I do want to thank all of you guys who reached out to me who somehow managed to get like 2 of these, and they're like, oh, I'll sell you one of my pre-orders or something like that. I'm still not 100% sure about what moves I'm going to make, but I did see all your messages. I am very, very grateful for you guys, and who knows, closer to the release date of the system, I may have to hit you guys up or one of you guys up to try and get one of those. I'm not a Nintendo YouTuber, so I guess the odds are not in my favor with this whole situation, but I did want to thank you guys before getting into the main portion of this video, and I may be in touch with you, but we have to talk about something else that is, well, pretty much setting the stage for how the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to handle third-party games, because when we were introduced to the Switch 2, and we got to look at some of these games. These games, a few of these games ended up popping up on retailers when it came to the third-party side of things. Now, games like Cyberpunk 2077 are all on the cartridge for the Nintendo Switch 2, but once again, like I've said before in the past, Nintendo seems to have some sort of working relationship with CD Projekt Red when it comes to their games. You might remember The Witcher 3 on the Nintendo Switch came on a 32 gigabyte cartridge that obviously Nintendo subsidized some of the cost of that, so they have some sort of working relationship going on here. But a lot of the other third-party games, it didn't seem like it was actually on the cartridge. It was going to be one of those digital game cards that we have talked about. Now, I made a video earlier this week talking about the digital game cards and how I don't necessarily hate them, because I do think that there is some benefit to them more so than just buying a digital download of a game, because you do retain the resale value of something like that. But there definitely was a large concern about how many companies were actually going to use a cartridge and how many companies were actually going to go this digital game card route, because a lot of these third-party games are big, and when you see a game like Bravely Default HD that we all know is not a huge file size game, and that's a digital game card, well, what does that mean for the other third-party games? Well, now the Band-Aid has been ripped off, and physical game collectors, you can go to hell because Nintendo said you can go to hell. This is coming to us from Gamatsu. Switch 2 game pre-orders have been up in Japan for a few hours, revealing all physical third-party games so far, except Cyberpunk 2077, that are not Nintendo Switch 2 editions to be shipping on the Game Key card, the digital download card. So you could see here, we have Suikoden, I believe that's what that is. Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I don't know who's buying those games. Shine Post. I don't know what that is. Wild Hearts. Survival Kids. Bravely Default. Kitsumi. I forget the rest of the name of the game. Yakuza 0. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S. Daemon X Machina. Raido. I don't remember how to say it. It was the game that everyone got excited about. Sonic and Shadow Generations and Street Fighter 6, and then they updated it to let us know that Ease X, or Ease 10 I should say, Proud Nordics, and No Sleep for Kaname Date are also game cartridges. So that is a digital game cartridge, meaning that you have to connect to the internet to download something. And there are definitely two trains of thought when it comes to this. Now, first and foremost, the reason I laughed at Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S is because this is a very small game. Like, I think we all understand that Puyo Puyo Tetris is not a large game. So if third-party companies are already doing this with games like Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, with games like Bravely Default, Flying Fairy, this is probably going to be a standard going forward that a lot of physical game collectors are not going to like. And I feel like there's really two trains of thought to have with this, because honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, physical game collecting to me isn't as important as it used to be. It used to be very important to me. As time has gone on, though, I've kind of shifted to the convenience of things like digital stuff. And I do like the digital game cards because I do feel like, having that additional resale value on them is definitely a lot better than just a code in the box. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch 1 had a lot of games where you had to download large portions of the game. It wouldn't work if you didn't do that. The Mortal Kombats, the NBA 2Ks, all the bigger third-party games. And when you look at what the Switch 2 is getting in terms of third-party games, like, a lot of these companies are not going to optimize their game to fit on a 64 gigabyte cartridge that they have to pay for. You see, that's the thing. 64 gigabyte game cartridges versus what a Blu-ray costs are probably very different. A Blu-ray costs literally pennies, and this costs probably dollars. And companies don't want to have to, spend extra money on things like that. When you go back to the N64, it was a very similar situation. The cartridge-based medium definitely held back what third-party games came to the system, and that's why games were so expensive. The third-party games were $20 or $30 more than the first party games on the Nintendo 64, because those third party companies literally had to buy the cartridge from Nintendo, and reports are out there that it was like $20 or $30 just to get the cartridge and then put your game on it. So that's why that tax ended up going on there, because of the cartridge based medium. Now, I'm not saying that Nintendo should have done a different form of media with this, because you are limited in how you can do things when you're talking about a portable device. You can't do a Blu-ray. You can't pop a Blu-ray into a portable device and expect it to work perfectly and there be no problems or anything like that. So it was kind of a situation where they had to figure out something. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is kind of the death of physical games on the Nintendo Switch 2. And I don't necessarily think you're wrong. There is a large push for the industry to do things like raise prices of games, to eliminate physical games, because you make more money, you have more control over a digital marketplace. And to see Nintendo, either by decision with the $80 Mario Kart World and variable pricing, or by necessity with the digital game cartridges, to have these third-party games on the system without having to make like a new storage medium for them, or make a bigger cartridge for these games to fit on, that companies wouldn't buy anyways from them, so they would just be sitting on them and they would still be going this route. Like, it's definitely a very hard pill for a lot of people to swallow, but this is just the way that the industry is kind of moving, and I know it pains people to hear that. And a lot of people are like, well, once true physical games are gone, then I'm not going to be buying games anymore. But I mean, that's just the way the industry is unfortunately moving. And, I think this is where preservation aspects, this is where conversations around, servers and being contingent on servers and stuff like that become very important conversations to be having as we move more so towards this all digital age of games. It's definitely tough though. And if you are surprised by these guys, honestly, I'm surprised by like Puyo Puyo Tetris. Like, you could have put that on a small cartridge. Like, let's be realistic here. But I think this is kind of the blueprint for third-party games. And the interesting thing is going to be whether or not this affects how third-party games sell on the Switch 2, because Japan, they still like their physical games. And when all of these third-party games coming out for the Switch 2 are, essentially the digital game cart or a digital download only, and then you get into the whole aspect of you're still downloading the game. So if the game is like 100 gigs because it won't fit on a 64 gigabyte cartridge, you're going to eat up your system memory with one or two games, and then you got to get the micro SD express card, and those cost money. Like, it's going to be very interesting. The Switch 2 is selling great, obviously, because I couldn't get one. But long term, I'm very curious to see kind of how this all plays out, especially when it comes to games and game sales, and when third party companies are doing these digital game cards as opposed to putting the game on an actual cartridge, because it seems like the outlier is going to be when companies actually put it all on the cartridge. And is that going to be celebrated? Is that something that, people are going to gravitate more so towards those games because they feel like they're getting inherently more value for the game being on the physical cartridge and not relying on an internet connection in order to download the game? I don't know. This is the thing. This is a very unknown area of how things are going to be. And I don't think any of us really have the answer right now. It's kind of a wait and see approach. I'm not against digital game cartridges, but I do feel like some of these companies are already they're already starting to abuse it. It's not going to get any better anytime soon. Give me your thoughts on the digital game cartridge situation in the comment section down below. Does this kind of dissuade you? Is that a word? I feel like it is. Persuade and dissuade. Does this make you not want to buy third-party games on the Switch if they're all just going to be digital game cards or digital downloads only? Because I could definitely see a lot of people, not liking this. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. Once again, big shout outs to you guys for trying to hook your brother up here. I think I'll be okay. I think, worst case, like I said on Twitter, I could buy a $500 Switch 2 in Mario Kart World, or I could buy a $5 ski mask and just wait outside of a midnight launch. I'm kidding. I would never do something like that. Who do you think I am? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.